Hello, everyone. Welcome to Blind Spots. I'm your host, Gail McDonald, and this week we have a very, very special guest who I had the pleasure of being on her podcast. And we were just discussing how strange it is when you've been on somebody's podcast and then you invite them back. Whose role is it? Who does the work? Who does the talking? Who does the asking questions? Anyway, I'm very excited to introduce Dayna Haig-Conway. Dayna is founder of Camp Mental Health, which is a framework that helps parents and care professionals feel full from within by rebuilding motivation and resilience from the inside out. With a background in outdoor education, teaching, youth care, and counseling, Dayna brings deep experience in supporting children, families, and professionals to meet core needs for connection, autonomy, and purpose, and so very much more. I've had the pleasure of speaking with Dayna before our show, and there is so much more to her, and I can't wait for you all to hear Dayna's story and what inspired her to get into this line of work. So, Dayna, welcome, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on here. It's such an honor.
Thank you. It is for me as well. But getting back to what I said in that brief intro, isn't it a bit unusual to be the one in in the guest seat?
It
Yes.
is. It's really
Yeah.
unusual.
Yeah.
And I mean, in my day-to-day too, I'm also like, as a clinical counselor, I'm
Yeah.
always the one asking the questions. So
Yeah.
I think I feel a little bit nervous being asked questions.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. There's I mean, as you know, I'm a coach and I'm asking the questions daily, and there's almost a vulnerability that goes with being the one that is that is, someone's asking you the questions.
Yeah,
So,
this is my lack of control here
yeah,
is.
exactly. I don't want to give that control up. So yeah, so I guess you are the passenger and you get to look out the window and talk about anything you want. And I have to do the driving, I guess, by asking you the questions and
I kind of like
which
that.
yeah. Okay. Which direction shall we take this today? Always, I think you and I agreed on this. It's so interesting to hear a person's story and
Mhm.
their background and what motivated them to do what they do. Like when you finally land on something that aligns with your values, something
Mhm.
perhaps that was created because of an experience that was pretty impactful that we've had in life. And
Mhm.
your story is very fascinating. And I guess the best place we can start right now is at the beginning. And I'll just jump in with questions as we go along. So,
Mhm.
how did you get to be the founder of Camp Mental Health? What inspired you, Dayna?
Yeah, I think I have so many answers to this. I definitely didn't take a linear path. Um, as I was sharing with you before, I really began my career trajectory going towards the outdoors.
Hmm.
Um, I grew up in Toronto and always wanted to live in the outdoors. I was really lucky as a young kid that growing up in Toronto, we were exposed to a lot of neat programs that took us out of the city. And I was privileged enough to get to go to a outdoor ed center with my school. And I remember getting to that outdoor ed center, and I always liked school, but never really found that true belonging
Hmm.
piece
Hmm.
there. And I always loved sports, but at this outdoor ed center, we got to do hiking and high ropes and team building. And I remember just looking at all of the educators and instructors and going, that is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I always was chasing that direction. And that's what I did with my undergrad was I went into outdoor rec and outdoor education and completed that degree, tried working in that industry, felt I needed a little bit more, and went to Teachers College in New Zealand because they have such a great outdoor education program there. And while I was doing this, I also had interests in working with people on the neurodivergent spectrum. And so I did some volunteer work with Autism Ontario. And when I got to Teachers College, I completed my teaching, really loved outdoor education, did not love being in the classroom. Found that I really wanted to specialize in working with children and youth that also didn't love being in the classroom. So I focused on working, I guess we called it special needs at the time, and at-risk youth. And then when I was teaching, it was 2011, and there was a massive earthquake. I was in Christchurch at the time. And I really thought going into that I was resilient. I played varsity sports. I did a lot of, I had a lot of exposure to challenges that I think made me always believe that I was resilient. And although I did come from quite a privileged background, and then this earthquake happened and I saw loss, and it really impacted me in ways that I wouldn't have expected. And I had a hard time coping with it. And I think even in ways that I'm kind of ashamed to admit now too, because I didn't have family or friends there that lost their lives. And I sat beside people that were experiencing that. But even the vicarious grief of that, I found I was absorbing. And I wasn't sure how to cope. And I think I was embarrassed to ask for help. And our school that I was working at had counselors and psychologists come in to support us. And that really changed my career trajectory. I realized how helpful it was for me. I saw how helpful mental health professionals were for my students, for my colleagues. And I thought I didn't know how to go that direction, but I thought that's what I need to do next. And it kind of lit a little spark that I didn't take action on because I was still really suffering. And then I moved to BC and kept teaching, but at the same time started to get into youth care work, and that evolved into family support work. And then I did a behavior intervention training, again, where I was working with kids with autism and with ADHD, and decided that I was going to apply to do a master's. I met a school counselor and I thought, well, that might be a nice transition to switch from teacher to school counselor. So I started a master's of education with a focus on school counseling and school psychology. And then after a year of that, decided that I wanted to jump straight into a master's of counseling psychology. So I switched and got to do a practicum internship with child and youth mental health, and really that one-to-one work I enjoyed. I felt like it aligned with my strengths, and I got to bring the outdoor piece into it. And was a school counselor for quite a few years and slowly switched over to private practice. I think I had started working with younger and younger people and then realized I want to support the people that support these young people so that we can get them right from the start. And through my years of practice and then taking on additional research and training, I came up with my CAMP framework to boost motivation and resilience. And I started teaching that in educational workshops for schools, for hospitals, for care facilities. And then that turned into a business of itself, Camp Mental Health. And I've written children's books for it and manuals, and that's where we are now.
Wow. You make it sound so easy. It's like, well, I just woke up one day and I decided I was going to do this. And then I was going to move to New Zealand. And then there was an earthquake. But
It
we all
sounds
know
linear now, but it
it
did not feel that
does.
way.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
still does
no,
not feel that
for
way.
sure. For sure. And when you beautifully stated in a very vulnerable way, I can't recall what word you used, whether it was you were embarrassed or you know, saying this now,
Yeah,
you
I had a
felt
lot of
ashamed.
shame. Hmm.
Yeah, and this was at the time of the earthquake. Was
Yeah,
that like around the earthquake time?
and I think
Mhm.
it lingered on for years.
Okay.
Um, I think it wasn't until I think the embarrassment and shame, and I'm sure people listening have experienced this before, is
Hmm.
we can all have exposure to the same challenge and it impacts us all differently. And I think one of our first thoughts tend to be that really self-critical judgment of, well, it didn't impact me as much as them,
Hmm.
or I shouldn't feel as bad. I didn't have it the worst. I don't have it the worst.
Okay.
And I think that shame really compounds, whether you want to call it the trauma or whatever it is that the actual experience brought you. And then you
Hmm.
kind of add that shame piece onto it, and it becomes this really
Hmm.
difficult little demon you're carrying around with you. And it
Hmm.
makes it so hard to ask for help because you've judged yourself away from being deserving of that help.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, and yet I feel that that is so common
Mm-hmm.
amongst most humans.
Mm-hmm.
And what I have learned throughout coaching is that, firstly, that is very common. Secondly, is that it's okay to feel that way because we do,
Mm-hmm.
and that there are always going to be people that have it worse, that have it better, and yet when we need help, we deserve it too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to ask for
Mm-hmm.
help. Again, it depends on the situation. Is there a neediness? Is there, you know, where is that line where people, because they're getting the help, don't help themselves? So that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of a whole nother topic unto itself. But what an experience for you to be, firstly, in a foreign country, no one around,
Mm-hmm.
that you're familiar with, like family, friends, I mean, people that you've met over there. But
Mm-hmm.
um, what an experience to have an earthquake in a foreign country.
Mm-hmm.
And when you did say um, that, like the whole experience of it there sounds like it was a catalyst for you,
Mm-hmm.
even though the emotions were probably devastating. And this was
Mm-hmm.
many years ago, so um, we do get older and wiser. Things might be, heaven forbid, it would ever happen again anywhere, but you likely might have handled it differently if you had more years of experience.
Mm-hmm.
But how would you even know at that age if you'd never ever experienced it?
Mm-hmm.
So if you were, if you're to reflect back, and this is something to maybe share with our listeners as a bit of a learning tool, um, what might you have thought differently looking back then about
Mm-hmm.
not wanting to ask for help or being embarrassed, or how might you perceive that with what you know now, like your education and your training and all the things that you're offering up for other people in support of their situations?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really great question. Looking back, I mean, it has really inspired my work, my passions, what I want to research.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I could draw a parallel experience, it would be becoming a mother. I found that equally as, not equally is the wrong word, but I think that was another phase in my life where that same sort of judgment when I was struggling with postpartum, with the transition, um, got in my way of asking for help, especially with my education background, feeling like I should have been prepared, but I was not, because educationally I was prepared this time, which I was
Right.
not prepared um, for earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back at both of those experiences, if I could replace mental health with any word, it would be belonging. And that really has been that word has been something that I've always been trying to understand. And I think in both of those experiences, I felt like I should have to fix it on my own. That when I'm struggling, there's this piece of wanting to be able to research it and understand it on my own first. But what I see come up in research is that no, if we're taking belonging and we want to break it down, then we want connection to be there. We want to connect both with ourselves and how we truly feel, because it's so easy to ignore how we're truly feeling. And we want to connect with others with similar experiences or that can empathize with the problem or support us in moving through it. Um, and that, yeah, we want to be able to identify a growth piece. And I think so often our growth piece is something big. Like, I need to do this really big action step to move me forward or make this really large plan. But sometimes it's just finding, I like to call it my purpose piece, like little tiny purpose steps that I can take to move out of the problem, and often with the support of others. So my purpose and connection piece could be um, giving back or meeting with other people and giving them a safe space to share what's happening, or supporting other people that maybe I think in the earthquake, a piece that started to move me through was eventually one of my roommates had us join um, a group of students that were digging, because when the earthquake happened, a bunch of houses filled with silt. It was almost like that really wet cement style soil that burst out of the ground, and so there were houses destroyed by this, and it came through like the septic fields or the sewer pipes, and so it created this horrible mess. And they needed volunteers to just go and start digging, and just having that collaboration. That wasn't necessarily me saying like I'm struggling and having to move into that vulnerable place, but just connecting with other people and feeling like you are taking a step forward together. So I
That's
think I
beautiful.
answered that in a long-winded way, but I think it all starts with connection, and it doesn't have to be connection from that place of I need help. It can just start with connection of I'm listening and I'm going to be in your presence. And then when I'm comfortable, I can share bits of my story too.
Wow. What's interesting is that um, I had a guest quite a few episodes ago, Paul Hari, and uh, his focus is belonging.
Mm.
And when you said belonging, I think I felt my eyebrows go up almost to my hairline. It's like, whoa, but it's so true.
Mm.
And then when you said connection within the environment that you were in with, I can't even imagine the devastation, the catastrophic conditions, and you're all just there digging. And I'm thinking of collective connection
Mm.
and the trust that's built from that. And then you also mentioned about that connection with yourself.
Mm.
Um, and so, how would you define um, what it means for you to feel connected to yourself.
That's that's another really good. This is a tough one. I think I can share this one maybe through story of where
Yeah.
I don't. I
Oh, I
think
love
how I
it.
would define it
Yeah.
evolves over the years.
Yeah.
Um, but I think at this stage in life, as a mother, as a professional, as all of these identity pieces that I tend
Hmm.
to attach to, um, I find connection with self can be tough because there's always that piece of what am I supposed how am I supposed to be in this role, right? How do others expect me to be in this role? What is the narrative I have about what this role is supposed to look like? And so at this stage in life, what connection to myself looks like is being very clear on what my values are. And I need to create a visual triage of my values. And so my story example of this would be one of my kids, their school has a carpool policy. So you have to carpool. And my my van is always a mess, like such a mess. And right now, one of our strong family values that we talk to the kids a lot about is how we support the environment, right? And what are environmental actions that we do,
Hmm.
and how we bring togetherness into the everyday.
Mm.
And one of our togetherness pieces is our really big hairy dog that's quite stinky. And so he's getting quite old, and so he loves to be with the family.
Yeah.
And so he's always jumping in and out of the van, and that does not add to it. And
Yeah.
then I think lower down that value list is I'm trying to think of a word that my own self-judgment doesn't judge. But I think lower down that list is
Yeah.
having that like very organized, clean, neat space.
Hmm.
And my self-judgment piece kind of wants that to be the top of the list.
Hmm.
But if I can remove myself from it and connect with myself, no, environment and togetherness actually are the two most important. So I'm driving to this carpool, and it's become a thing where sometimes the other kids in the carpool will go, "Ooh, your car is stinky," or "Why is there this stuff in
I love
here?"
that honesty of kids, right?
Yeah, the honesty of kids that really just, I'm not keeping up with the Joneses.
Exactly.
And so when I knew that was coming, I did, before I did the carpool, which
Yeah.
sounds silly out loud, I connected back with myself and reminded myself. Sorry. And the environmental piece ties in because we have chickens. And so we save our compost during the day,
Hmm.
and then we give it to the chickens that then produce us eggs. And so
Okay.
I had this mason jar full of all the day's snacks, like
Yeah.
our orange peels and banana, all that stuff
Yeah.
in it. And then we had Stinky Dog in the back. And all I was thinking was like, oh, I could rush, I could wake up a bit earlier, I could go like grab my office vacuum and vacuum it out before I go pick them up. And I just had to let that go and say, nope, that's down the list. It's
Wow.
okay to have, like right now, if I connect back with myself, to give myself some compassion, to not rush around, to not add another thing on my plate, I'm going to recognize where that is on the list. And I can explain the top two if I want to, or I can just let it be.
Hmm. I'm interested in that transition and how it was for you because I am a recovering neat person. And as you know, my children are grown and left home and before they left, I thought, when they're gone, everything is going to be in its place. There won't be a mess. And then they moved out and I went, oh, it's still kind of messy in here. So, um, and it took me, and I still grapple with it. Like
Mhm.
if I'm sitting on the couch and I see something on the floor in the kitchen, like it's taken me a long time to go, leave it, I'll get it later.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a chocolate lab who's 7, but he acts like 2.
Mm-hmm.
And there's toys everywhere and dog hair. And I look at it and I go, nope, sorry. And if you want to come visit, I will vacuum so you don't get it all over your socks. But if I can't, I don't have time. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But for me, it's taken years
Mm-hmm.
to truly, truly, authentically be okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
And not just saying, oh, yeah, I'm okay with it. But really, what you're saying is you're not okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that whole reprioritization, reprioritization.
Yeah,
That's a tough one.
that is a tough one.
It is. Why did I say that? Of values.
Yeah.
Like it's that old cliche, like what do you want on your headstone? What do you want people to say about you at your funeral? Oh, your floor had no dog hair. Well,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, who cares? Or,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you were a kind, loving person who always had the door open for people despite the dog hair.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you have to say about how that was for you? Because I get it. It for me, it was almost an addiction. This whole
Mm-hmm.
tidy facade thing, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I think there you just highlighted one of my favorite practices, and I just call that zoom out. Like zoom out and look backwards. And what do I care about?
Yeah.
Um, and then how is the process? I don't know if I will ever truly be okay with it, right?
Hmm.
I think I
Yeah.
also talk to the people that I love about how I will present sometimes
Hmm.
when I'm trying to be okay with it and I'm not okay with it, so that
Hmm.
they don't take that on as something that they've done wrong. That this is a that sounds very cliche. This is a me thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but when I think of full from within,
Hmm.
really what I'm always trying to do is have that feeling of I have my needs and my values met. I'm prioritizing them. So although this is still so uncomfortable, like the someone making a comment about not being neat or me staying and watching the movie when there's a dish that has to be done, I have the capacity to deal with that challenge. It's not going to make or break me.
Hmm.
And I have the capacity to say it out loud and laugh about it.
Hmm.
And sometimes I do take the step, but I also have a daughter, and I had a guest a few weeks ago on my podcast, Dr. Tyler McKay, and she was reflecting on how growing up, she never really saw women sitting still, that
Oh,
they were always having
yeah.
to do something and
Yeah.
always doing something productive, and that how
Yeah.
so many of us, that is a message that we attach to our identity as a female within the family.
Hmm.
And so that too helps me fight that urge, because I don't want to model that for either my daughter or my son to expect from women. So yeah,
Hmm.
there are times where it probably impacts my behavior because I'm trying to like be okay, but I try and be vocal about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I made a quick note as you were speaking because there were two things that came to mind that I didn't want them to disappear.
Mm-hmm.
But I really appreciate what you said about the essence. What I captured from you was just the setting of standards, being the role model, um, because generations ago, that really was it.
Mm-hmm.
Like your guest had said, and I'm sorry I didn't catch the doctor's name. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
heard it, but it went right. It's
Yeah.
too much going on in here right now.
Yeah.
But it's that open and honest communication to say, if I do behave this way, it's like, don't take it personal. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
behaving this way. I'm just feeling a little bit antsy. because all my Tupperware is not in the drawer. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
metaphorically speaking, of course, and just really managing those expectations. And you openly earlier talked about, postpartum depression, and there's some things that um, women do go through, especially after having children, that it's very hard for um, the opposite sex to kind of understand.
Hmm.
Like, I'm having PMS right now, and if you don't get out of the room, I'm just gonna I'm just gonna do away with you. Like, I can't stand the sight of you right now. And that
Yeah.
sounds really horrible. Or, if your husband's chewing the wrong way, or I mean, it's just I'm past that now. So
Hmm.
my husband doesn't have to wear a hockey helmet around the house anymore. He's he's safe. But it is. And I mean, I raised boys, so I had to kind of educate them that this is what you're in for if you choose a partner of the opposite sex. This is what's
Hmm.
going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And how I think of much how much different our relationships would be if we did inform and explain and communicate. And there's this one phrase I heard a while back, which I think is somewhat relevant, is um, maintain your standards, but don't lower your expectations.
Mm.
So,
Hmm.
what are your thoughts on that based on what you've been sharing? How does that fit in?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm trying to pause to have an actual thought that aligns the most with how I show up in the world right now. And I guess where my default would be, and whether that's through what I was exposed to as a kid, the narratives I created around um, a woman's role, a mother's role, whatever that might be,
Mm-hmm.
my default has always been to fix it myself.
Oh.
Right? That has been
Mm-hmm.
so. If it's let's say a messy room for my kids, and I ask them once, and then they don't do anything, and then I can feel the tension building between us, then my default would be to fix it myself, to clean it up myself, or as I'm talking to them and maybe lecturing them. And then my default when it's a workplace challenge is to look up and research. And when it was postpartum depression and anxiety, same thing. I was just going constantly down the rabbit hole of let's find an answer, let's find something myself. Um, and where I consciously make a switch with that is what are the values that I want to instill in both myself, how I live, how I want to be remembered, big picture, and the values that I want to pass on to either this client, these people listening to this workshop, my children, and knowing that modeling is the best way to do that. How am I modeling that? And that putting that piece behind my actions ups my motivation, makes me feel full, gives me that greater sense of purpose. And so, for example, if it is with my kids and it is around putting stuff away and not being the mom frantically going around the house trying to pick things up, it looks more like a conversation. It looks more like a request, but support in the follow through. And it looks more like me learning to take a step back and triage that passing on of the value over the neatness value again, right? Because it's not going to fit, the finished product won't be maybe the same space that I want it to be, but it can still be an expectation that's high that meets the age or the development of the person that I'm supporting.
I
Is
was,
that, did
yeah,
I
I was,
answer that?
well, and then some. Again, multiple thoughts come to mind, and based on what you said. And sometimes, and you've brought up, you grew up in a household that was this way, right? And I think of how I grew up, um, and I've heard that with what you've just said, that especially with our children who we would literally die for. I mean, our kids are everything. Um, and yet are the expectations we have of them realistic sometimes? And no judgment, or no finger pointing or anything, but we are we fair in asking things of them that are sort of beyond their years of capability, like to make the bed perfectly? We all had to learn, and I know for myself, I have forgotten sometimes, when I was getting my kids to do things, like how I wasn't great at something and how difficult it is to learn, and to just, as Mel Robbins says, like let them, like, and with your experiences you've had up until now, especially New Zealand, that like you said, I'd never been in an earthquake before, but you learned, right? So, and what else has that contributed to make you who you are today? Like all of the, what you offer people and how you are as a human. And people have to go through experiences to really get the full meaning of what it's like. But we sometimes just, we fail to remember that. And so, I mean, so many of the things you've talked about, Dayna, I'm so curious as to how you sometimes support people with understanding that, and just, giving people space, whether it's children or friends or family, and allowing them to do things the way they do them, irregardless of how we're feeling in the turmoil we feel inside. Like, oh my gosh, your bed's not perfect, or you put the milk on the wrong shelf. I mean, there's all kinds of things that set people off that could be very seemingly very tiny. It's so complex. We could spend months, well, people have months, years, trying to figure out that human condition. So how might you describe, with the work you do, how you work with people to bring them to shift their perspective even a little bit? Like whether it's one-on-one or your workshops, like what does that look like?
I I think one of my personal, and that is where so much of my work stems from, is, like so many of us, our research journeys, our educational journeys tend to align with our own personal experiences and need for that knowledge to support ourselves. And at least that's very true of me. And a big piece that I practice as well as teach is practicing what you preach. And knowing that the work really starts with me. And as much as possible, I bring all of it to the surface so that there can be a conversation around it. So I bring to the surface some of that inner dialogue of, you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking that I am stuck on that the milk is supposed to be in the milk spot, which in my mind is right here. And I'm just having to take a pause and have a little laugh because I asked you to live our family value of respecting everything that we have and making sure that it gets put away properly so it's safe for everyone to use the next day. And I'm acknowledging you did do that. You did the value side of that. You have contributed to our family, and that's what matters. And I'm going to say this out loud because you can see that still as an adult, I'm working so hard to let it go. And it's hard. And there's going to be things like this for you. And I try and bring an example of like when you ask me to give you your water, and sometimes I don't pick the favorite water bottle.
Yeah.
But I'm living the goal, or I'm living my purpose as your mom of keeping you healthy and safe, and that is giving you water. And sometimes you're really not going to want to let that wrong water bottle piece to go, right? And so talking that through out loud helps me, one, stay grounded in the action that I have and not default to my like, fix it, because I would go change the milk or go get the favorite water bottle. And it helps me instill that in the person I'm supporting, because now I've said it out loud. I've made it clear on what I'm doing, how I fulfilled my role, and then they have the autonomy to change where the milk is or go get their favorite water bottle if that is that important to them. And so I love bringing this dialogue to the surface. And same with when we're working with adults, right? Like, or even having a relationship with an adult of, hey, you know what, right now, like I'm feeling this urge, like you've told me something you're suffering with and I want to fix it for you. And I want to give you an answer. And before I do that, I'm going to ask, do you want me to just listen, or are you here trying to ask me for advice? Right. But I own what they're going to see coming out. And I also do that. So I'm doing that check back in with myself. Like, oh, your default's here. Let's say it out loud and make yourself accountable. So you check back in with your true self, who you really want to show up as.
So what I'm sensing here is there's an essence of emotional intelligence. So you're modeling it, which is the best way to influence, or would you say otherwise? Do you feel modeling is a good way to influence?
Modeling.
Yeah. And I do have clients ask about that, how do I influence people, like leaders especially? And I'm wondering in your role, do you have people ask that or talk about that? Like, I really want to be a better influence. Does that ever come up in your practice?
I think the key word that I hear a lot is I want to motivate. Like they'll come to my practice and talk to me about, I have a client that's not motivated, or a colleague, employee, child, like they have no motivation. And where I always begin with is, well, what are you seeing, right? And why does their current behavior make sense? Like, why does how they're showing up right now make sense for them?
Yeah.
And why does it make sense that you see that as a lack of motivation? And I mean, we can tie that back to, let's use like cleanliness, for example, the neatness one. I think I hear that one a lot from parent clients. Like, my kid's not motivated to look after themselves, right? Like teenage clients. Well, why does it make sense for them right now? Well, we could rank likely what a teenage values, and that's pretty low on their value list, right? So it makes sense from that angle. And then for so many of the current parent generation, respect was really shown by following the rules of the house, right? Like, if you didn't put your stuff away, that was really seen as a sign of disrespect of your stuff, of the money your parents earned to get that stuff. Like, there's a whole messaging that goes on behind that behavior. And so until we see why the current lack of motivation or need to motivate others, like why that makes sense that we're both having those desires to act that way or to want that, then we can't have a perfect, well, you just need this step and inspire or influence or motivate. You can't just talk to them in a specific way or model a certain thing. We first need to understand, well, why are we here? Why do we have this expectation? And why does the way they're showing up make sense?
That's complex. Teenagers.
Teenagers.
And we were both one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of my room, and it was a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing organized was the makeup and the hair care products.
Yeah.
Everything else didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So again, back to perhaps parents remembering what they were like at that age,
Mm-hmm.
and then considering where their children are at that age.
Mm-hmm.
It's complex.
And I think, but you
sorry.
bring up a great point, because I think often people hear that explanation, and we can say the same of a leader and their employee, right? Like of what their expectation is of the employee. And we can understand, right? Why does my employee need to be reminded 5 times of this being due or this needed for the presentation? Like what, like how do I motivate them to start making those action steps? Whatever that is, first we discover why it makes sense. But like you said at the start of this podcast, it doesn't mean that we drop the expectation of them. Right? We can still expect and work with that teen to have the room in the area, like the room in a state that aligns with our value as a household. We can still have high expectations of that employee and share with them what needs to be accomplished to do that role. But the first piece of that conversation is showing them, I'm going to do my best to get where you're coming from. This conversation is not coming from a place of judgment. And we can't have that conversation if it does come from a place of judgment, because we all know what that feels like. We're like, don't tell me about how to clean my room. Don't tell me how to get this report done.
Yeah.
But if I can come and have that conversation with you, it makes sense. It's so hard for you to get that report done. You have 2 young kids. This right now, someone's sick. Like, I know that on the priorities of your life, this is low. We do have to get it done. Here are some strategies I'm thinking of to help you meet this, because I'm seeing right now that we have to put a couple interventions in place. I want to hear if you have more, if there's more ways that I can show you I'm on your team, right? It makes sense that your room is in this disarray and your hair care and your makeup are in great shape, because right now that's really important to you. You get a lot of judgment at school about how you look, how you show up, what you're wearing, right? I get that. I also know that as your mother, it's part of my role to help you look after your things, to make it easier in the morning so that this becomes part of your routine to help you carry forward in life. Here's some strategies I'm thinking of. I really want to hear if you have any. I want to support you in this, right? In improving this life skill.
So it's all great in theory. You and I are in different capacities, yet some of the things that we discuss with people are very similar. And I think about, Dayna, oftentimes it sounds so simple in theory. Yeah, it's like, as of tomorrow, I know I cannot eat cake if I want to lose a few lbs, right? However, if I start Monday, well, come Thursday, I'm like, oh, right? That thought, it's like, a little bird tapping on the window. Hey, I got cake out here. Right? And it's the fact that the concept itself is simple, but it's challenging to follow through sometimes when you see the kids' room, we'll stick on that metaphor, I guess. And it's messy once again. You've had a chat. You think it's going to be okay. And then it's not, because, 3 days after they tidy it up, maybe they've shoved everything under the bed. Who cares? But it looks good. and then it's that way again. So what 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 do you feel might be getting in the way mm, of m making it more, I don't know, to a teenager, it's not really important, but what might be their motivator to um, understand how it makes us feel? So I'm thinking of
Mm-hmm.
that communication piece.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And I think there's so many different, I think as people are listening to this, they're coming at it from so many different angles, right? Like, I
Oh,
want the room
yeah.
to be clean because I want my child to have this life skill. I want the room to be
Mm-hmm.
clean because I want them to respect the house and my rules. I want the room to be. So we have to have that piece of like,
Mm-hmm.
where is my need for this coming from first? Right?
Whoa.
How dysregulating is this for me
Right.
first? And so,
Right.
how do I check in with that narrative and that level of dysregulation?
Uh-huh.
Because we have all felt what it's like to have that person come into our lives and ask us a question or try and have a collaborative discussion with us. But
Mm.
as they're talking, we're like, where is it? They're going to drop their, like, I know they have a secret agenda here. And what is
Mm-hmm.
that secret agenda? I'm just
Mm-hmm.
waiting for it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all very hyper aware of that. And so if we're going into those conversations not making that agenda clear or being sneaky about it, then it really disrupts the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
think one is owning that agenda and what is it, right? Is the room just a facade or like our way of saying like, actually I'm after respect from this kid, right? Like what am I actually after here?
Yeah.
And if it does just boil down to the room because you are trying to teach them that life skill, then we're going to have to be willing to work halfway with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to have to be that work backwards piece. I think something that comes up a lot in intrinsic motivation research is um, avoiding. So many of us have been taught to use avoidance of the consequence as motivation to do the thing, right? So if you want to avoid gaining extra pounds, don't eat the cake, right? If you want to avoid someone coming into your room and being like, oh, then clean your room, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that actually isn't a sustainable motivator for us as humans.
Yeah. It's extrinsic
Yeah,
and
it's
it's,
extrinsic, but
yeah.
also the negative versus the positive, right? Having
Right.
it as a positive, even if it's an extrinsic sort of goal,
Yeah.
which I mean, we can use extrinsic motivators to reach that goal, which obviously aren't as effective as intrinsic,
Mm-hmm.
but even using the positive is more effective than avoidance of the negative. Do your homework so you don't get a detention
Mm-hmm.
is less effective than let's work together to do your homework because you have this goal of getting into this program, right? Like working
Mm-hmm.
towards the positive. And so I
Mm.
think that's one of the first steps to think about
Mm-hmm.
is when I have this conversation, do I have, and I have that default because I think that was used on me a lot as a student, as I'm like, I don't want to say my parents used that because I can't think of an example, but maybe they did at times.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing that piece and then having that collaborative conversation. So, what is my need as your parent? Can I say it out loud so that you see that elephant in the room? You know what?
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling this strong need to work with you on having an organization system for your room because you're in grade 11. We have 2 years. You really want to go to university or college. You want to live outside of the home. I, as your parent, have the responsibility of teaching you how to do that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so here are some, and then we have that collaborative discussion. I know this sounds silly from your side. I know this is annoying. I can acknowledge all of that. I'm still going to be a little hard on you with this. And I think we have this false idea that when it comes to these kinds of tough conversations of modeling right? I also have to make sure that I'm modeling this in my own space, or teaching, is that it's a one-time conversation, right? Like I need to say this thing, they'll get motivated, and every conversation is going to kind of flow and it'll be easy. And no, that's not the case, right? And it's okay to have disagreement, to have collaborative talks that don't feel great in the end, because all of that is a learning process. It's a learning process for me as a parent or a leader, and it's a learning process for my child. I'm not going to, or my patient or my client or whatever that might be. We're not going to all of a sudden fix a problem. And I like to say, like, the faster we fix it, the shorter amount of time it's probably going to last.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
really agree with you on that. There
Mm-hmm.
is no quick fix when it comes to human beings.
Mm-hmm.
They're all
I really
thinking.
don't think there's a quick fix to anything that I can think of
Hmm.
that lasts.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dayna, in the programs or the work that you do,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd like to actually, make sure we share this with the audience before we wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what are sort of the keystone areas? Like, is it one-on-one? Is it your workshops? Do you work with teens or children individually and parents individually? Or is there any group sessions that you do for families?
Mm-hmm. So my primary work right now, I do have a private practice, but it's
Hmm.
only for um, my local area, for clinical counseling. For camp mental health, I work across Canada, and I work with everyone from parents to educators, leaders within businesses, healthcare professionals, and other mental health experts.
Hmm.
And we come to locations, and CAMP is a 4-step needs assessment framework. So we teach organizations how to assess the needs if they're noticing either difficult behaviors, lack of motivation, lack of resilience. And so we assess the needs behind those behaviors. We teach the organizations how to do that. And then we work through the framework on how to meet those needs and improve resilience and motivation. And so
Mm.
tomorrow, for example, we have one specifically for women on the front line, so women in professional capacities, on how to meet needs to reduce burnout. And all of those workshops can be found at Camp Mental Health. We actually just graduated our first round of coaches. So when I was
Mm.
working with organizations in other provinces, I was doing that virtually. But right now we have coaches in a few different provinces. So I join for the virtual component, and my coach comes in for the live component to teach the workshop.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Wow, that's extensive. So you can cut yourself some slack for the smelly dog. And, you know, if nobody likes it, well, they can get to school another way. How's
Yeah.
that? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I so relate to the smelly dog, and I get in and I go, oh, Sam's been at the river again, right? And
Yes.
it's just like you get used to it because I think of what I get versus what I really don't want, which is the aggravation of thinking, oh my gosh, I have to, like you say, get up early and clean the car. And no,
Hmm.
that's my car,
Hmm.
right? I mean, I get it detailed every once in a while and they do a really good job. And then Sam gets in and it's all for naught.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, that balancing priorities what I've learned from you today, Dayna. First of all, I love your energy. I appreciated you right from the start. It's just,
Mhm.
oh, she's so chill. I love it. And I
Likewise. Same with me.
well, thanks. I never would have thought of myself that way much because usually I'm like, a little on the vibrating side because I love this kind of work and I vibrate very easily because it's so exciting. It's like, ooh, tone it down. But I really want to thank you for sharing. the journey of how you got to be doing what you're doing, and the genuine interest and the passion, and the lived experience you've had, so you can, so you have that ability to understand where people are coming from.
Mm.
And there's that difference of, knowing how they feel versus knowing what they're experiencing. And I can't recall if you and I talked about this, but even though someone has experienced exactly the same as you or vice versa, we both might feel very differently about that situation depending on our upbringing, our backgrounds, our belief, and life experience. To what's devastating to one person may not be as devastating to another, given the same situation. So there's that fine line. And with the work that you do, that's something I'm sure that you're always aware of.
Mm.
And the fact that you're doing it with 2 little kids, I don't know, that's fantastic. I just really wish you all the best. This is great work.
Well, I really want to thank you, Gail, and I think right from meeting you and hearing your story, I maybe put you on a bit of a pedestal. I find you very inspiring, and I'm honored to get to speak with you. And I think that lived experience piece, I remember right after my son was born, he's the eldest, and holding him, and maybe a few weeks in that postpartum phase, and desperately wanting to write an email or send a text message to every mother I had ever told that I was tired, and going, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's a whole new level of tired.
It is a whole new level of tired, and a whole different. But yeah, that just made me think of it, and I think there is just such a important piece there too, of recognizing that there are so many people that we do support that we don't have their lived experience, and in those spaces, listening is our greatest tool, and sharing stories and connecting with others that maybe do have that lived experience. And I appreciate that that's what you are doing on this platform as well, and that's just such a benefit to our society and our community. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure, for sure. And you're very welcome. So when someone wants to contact you, where's the best place to go?
Yeah, we are on campmentalhealth.com, and all of our information is there, all of our workshops. I'm not talking about myself in third person. I do have amazing supporters there, and colleagues. And we can be reached at info@campmentalhealth.com too, especially if you are a nonprofit or a parent advisory council for a school, interested in hosting a workshop and having that 5% give back model come into your own area.
Excellent. Man, that's great incentive for sure. And so helpful, so needed too.
Thanks.
So Dayna, thank you for hanging out with me. We might hook up again in the future and see how things are going with you.
Yeah, and I'm excited to.
Yeah, definitely. So I wish you all the best. And let's shoot for every province in Canada.
Yeah. Thank you, Gail.
All right. Take good care, and thank you so much for coming.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.